Hi everyone, so in this video, all I'm going to do is basically just go through ASINs on Amazon and show you what certain data points I look at when looking at listings and utilizing Keepa. Obviously, we're not going to be trying to source profitable products in this video. All I'm going to be doing is literally interpreting the data in a way that you need to be able to when it comes to selling on Amazon and doing wholesale, right? So I'm literally going to tell you the different data points I'm looking at and essentially translating what the data is showing me into English. And this is so important when it comes to wholesale, because with wholesale, we purchase stock and jump on listings that we believe have longevity, and therefore our ability to read data and keep graphs help us predict how much longevity a product will have for us. So essentially what you want to do is use Keepa to basically read the future and predict how a listing will perform when we jump on it. And in order to do that, you need to know how to actually look at this Keepa data and read it in a way which is beneficial for us. Okay, so now without further ado, let's get into the screen recording. So all I've done here is literally just clicked on the first storefront which I've found. We don't need that. Clicked on the first storefront which I found. And all I'm going to do is simply click through these ASINs. Now, something which is very important to know at the start of this video is I am not logged in on a Prime account, so we are not going to actually be able to see who has the buy box on Amazon, but we will use obviously Keepa to give us an idea of who has the buy box at what prices and at what fulfillment type. So what I'll do is I'll actually get this ASIN. Little trick, you can get the ASIN from here and type in DP and then the slash, and then that will bring you any product detail page up. So all I'm going to do here is actually do that. That's that trick shown for you. Now what this will do is, let's say you have a listing, an ASIN in your notes that you stored to the side like 3 months ago, you paste it into Amazon, now you can't find it, you can do this. And if it says something like the product detail page has been removed, it's probably violated a policy or whatnot. So that's a little trick there for you. So what am I seeing in this listing? Straight off the bat, I want to sort it by a year and all time, just to get an idea of what sorts of price points this product has been at since it was born. Another little Keepa trick, you can literally see who the first seller was on the listing, and usually the first seller on the listing is the person who created the listing. It's a little gem for you guys as well. So, and obviously that will help you with the IP side of things. So what I'm seeing here is currently the product price is sat at around £6.27. So this company, £6.26. So this company actually does have the buy box. So what does this tell us? So if I look back at the historical data here, we can see that it's previously been at £5.83. So a listing like this, we wouldn't actually go in and hedge our bets too much at it staying at £6.30, £6.40, because we know it can drop to £5.83. So that's something to keep in mind if you was to drop or sell on this listing. However, can we dig a bit deeper and find out why this listing actually dropped to £5.83? So what I can do is I can see that we had Carter Global Services who had quite a bit of the buy box when it dropped to £5.83. So now what that tells me is that this Carter Global Services dropped the buy box because perhaps they had too much stock or they had overstock, so they wanted to get a lot of the sales. So let's go in and check that, click data, offers, and let's actually go back into the historical data and see what was actually happening at this time to get an understanding of, yes, the listing has dropped to £5.83 before, but why was that? And what is the probability that it will drop to that price point again? Okay, and is that probability of it dropping to £5 again high? So that means we won't jump on the listing if we're not profitable at that £5 price point, or is it low, which means that, okay, hang on a second, even though it has dropped to £5 before, the probability of it dropping to £5 again is pretty low, because let's say, for example, the company that tanked it to that £5.80 price point, let's say they no longer sell on Amazon. So that's something to think about. So let's dig a bit deeper and have a look. So they were historical, unless they're still on the listing. Let's have a look. I doubt it though. No, they're not on the listing. Include historical offers. 180 days. Now sometimes, there we go. As predicted, they had overstocked drastically on the listing, 130 days worth of, 130 units of stock. And the listing, I think the yellow line indicate, let's have a look. What was the yellow line saying? Yeah, we're selling 50 times a month roughly, just above. And they had basically 2 months worth of stock. So these guys were in a scurry to liquidate stock. And if we look at their pricing, it speaks volumes. So literally we had £6.26 there. So when these guys jumped on, where are we again? They were priced at literally £6.49. So the typical buy box price that the listing typically sells at. However, they quickly realized, hang on a second, we've overstocked drastically here. We've got to tank this listing and liquidate stock. So as you can see, bang, the tank to the ground. And they liquidated stock and they never came onto the listing. So they clearly miscalculated how much this listing would sell. What we can do is we can actually open up this seller and see if they're currently on Amazon. So they currently are still on Amazon. Are they selling much? One result. So that shows me that, okay, it looks like they've left this listing alone. So even though we can see here, it's sold at £5.83 in the past. Now, what most sellers might do is they might think, hang on a second, we're not going to sell this listing because we're not profitable at £5.83. However, what we've just done there is we've dug a bit deeper and now we have data to suggest, okay, yeah, it did sell at £5.83 before. However, it looks like the seller realized that they made a mistake by over ordering stock, tanked the listing, and they haven't touched the listing again. They still sell on Amazon, but they don't sell much on Amazon now. So that, all the data which we've just uncovered and all the information which we've just gathered will help us make a better purchasing decision when deciding whether or not to sell on a listing like this. Okay, so hopefully that shows you exactly what you want to be looking at when it comes to analyzing listings, because a lot of people look at it and be like, oh, it's sold at £5.83, that's too low, I'm not profitable. No. Every aspect of the business you need to be advanced or dig as deep as possible. Very simply put, in here with the analysis, we have to keep digging. So here we literally found out, okay, it's been at £5.83 before. However, why was it at £5.83? What is the probability that will drop to £5.83 again? Analyze all that, then make a decision on whether or not you want to sell on a listing like this. And that's how you've got to go about running a wholesale business in general when it comes to Amazon. I've said it in many videos before. Most people do it to this level, make bad purchasing decisions, and then business fails. We've got to do it to this level, like I've literally just showed you, in order to hit the numbers you want to hit and make consistent profits every single month on Amazon and make better purchasing decisions. Like I said at the start of the video, your ability to read Keepa will enable you to essentially predict the future and make better purchasing decisions. So let's go on to this next listing. And I'll take this ace in here. Let's plug it in there. And something which we'll have a look at now. Wow, so we can see straight off the bat there's a lot of offers on this listing. So this again is a listing we typically stay away from. So what am I seeing in this? So straight off the bat, you can see, like I said, there's a lot of a lot of offers. Now, something which is very, very important to keep in mind is when you're looking at Keepa graphs, it's not just looking at each individual line separately, it's understanding the trends in the data. How every single line which we see on this Keepa graph, or on these three graphs, they're intertwined. They all work in relation to each other. And we need to understand that. Why? Is because then that will enable us to better predict future trends and how listings will perform, whereby we can look at certain lines and how they're behaving, and that will enable us to read how they will essentially behave in the future. So it's important not to only look at these lines to an individual level, but actually understanding how all these lines intertwine and work together. Okay? So what am I seeing here? So straight off the bat, what you can see is this listing has gone from selling 50 times a month to 600 times a month. So now it's down to us to gain an understanding of why is that. Is this A, a seasonal product? Is it B, due to the offers on the listing? For example, the price point may have dropped drastically, which means it's now selling more. So now let's have a look. It's a moisturizer of some sort. so that doesn't suggest to me seasonality. However, there are some people which obviously may moisturize more in summer. In my opinion, I usually spot a trend of moisturizers spiking in winter because people have drier skin. So to me, it suggests here the reason why. Let's look at here. Why has it suddenly started selling more? Here we have £7. So at this price point, I was selling 50 quid a month at around 7 quid, and it's gone down to the £6.50. £6, yeah, low 6 quid. So perhaps that price point of, let's say, the mid to low 6 quid has caused this increase in sales, right? Now, sometimes even then a pound can cause such a drastic difference. Because for example, let's say in Amazon's ranking, the nearest competitor to this, let's say, or in the bestsellers rank, the nearest competitor to this product may have been slightly more expensive. Or some other things may come into play, like for example, this product may be discontinued from retailers, so less people are able to buy it in their stores, so it's more, let's say, readily available online. That's another reason why we may have stock just all of a sudden start selling more, even though the price point hasn't changed too much and it's not seasonal. What I'd do here is, if I was to go in and dig deeper into this listing, I'd literally search this product at retailers, and you may see that it's unavailable in a lot of them, which is why, that explains this uptick in a sudden amount of sales. To be fair, something else which I'd probably keep an eye out for on a listing like this is, with the product price going down, what usually happens is, like we've covered, the sales rocket, essentially, because obviously more people are buying it. But what you're going to very quickly see is the sales are going to essentially rocket too quickly, because obviously there's more buyers, or there's more people buying this listing than selling on this listing. So what's going to happen is this listing is going to keep going down in price point, the offer count is going to keep going up, and eventually it's going to hit a point whereby the offers are just going to suddenly drop because everyone's running out of stock, and the price point is going to go and spring back up. So that's how I expect this listing to behave. And you'll probably, or whenever you watch this video, you'll probably see that trend literally come to life. So feel free to go into this listing and see if that does happen. So let's have a look at some fruit roll-ups. So take that in, put in there. So what am I seeing in this listing? Straight off the bat, okay, no sales rank, but it is selling. Amazon likes to do that with candies. So how can we essentially gather data that is selling, despite the fact it literally tells us? Another thing we can do is literally look at the reviews, see how frequently it's reviewed. We can also look at the reviews line on Keepa and see that is a gradual, steady increase in reviews. Something like this happens sometimes when Amazon merges listings and there's a huge blocky change in the reviews. Something else you can do is literally click in and you can see the stock dropping. So that's another way for us to indicate that the stock is actually selling without it having a sales rank. Again, things like this is caused by the seller having an order limit, so we can't actually dig a bit deeper in and see how their stock is fluctuating. Yeah, as we can see here, the stock is moving quite a bit as well from these FBA sellers. Very important, we can only utilize this feature really with FBA because obviously we can see how much the stock is selling. It's not really as applicable with FBM. Let me see if we can find an FBM seller here, because they can obviously manually change their stock levels. So it might go down a couple of times a day, but that might just be their inventory management system changing it because they're fulfilling orders via different platforms. So that's something else to think about. So that's the takeaway from a listing like this. If it's got no sales rank, these are the different data points you can look at to see if it's selling. Like I said, you can literally, I just clicked into them there, but you can literally see here it's selling, and you can get a good idea of how much is moving via that as well. Let's have a look at this listing here. Plug it in. Let's see what I see in regards to this. Straight off the bat, something I've just realized, this looks pretty international to me. It looks like it's from like America, I would say, with the way the product just looks. So probably if we were going to get access to this stock, it'd probably be via an authorized distributor in America. So we would have to go in and import this stock. So that's something we would look at. So now, as you can see, Amazon used to sell on this listing. However, they don't seem to be present on the listing at all, except for here, which is pretty weird, where they came in at a high price point for whatever reason sometime last year. So what am I seeing in this listing? Very simply, we can see that it usually sits at around the low £7 price point via this company called High House, which clearly has a, yeah, it's clearly selling, clearly has access to suppliers in America by the looks of it. Let's have a look at their, yeah, you can tell like when you go into these storefronts where they're buying from. So this is all looking very American to me. So they've clearly got a pretty decent distributor in America from which they are importing stock from. Either that or they've got a really good relationship with a distributor in the UK that imports directly from America. So let's say we were able to find a supply for this. Obviously that's for a different video, because I can probably guarantee I'd be able to find a supply for this from an authorized distributor in the US. And no, I'm not gonna type in Crisco wholesale America. That's gonna come up with rubbish. I have specific strategies to find supplies for products like this. If you want to learn any of those strategies, feel free to book in a call, use the link down below. But like for a listing like this, let's say we were able to find a supply for this. We've then opened up an avenue for another 100 odd listings, whereby let's say for every price list we get, we can literally just try to locate these products. So that's something to think about. But what I take away from this is High House is pretty dominant on this listing at the around £7 price point. And in my experience, I would say that they are purchasing this directly from America. Now we've got to see here, why did this price point increase? It's probably because High House ran out of stock between March and May. Let's have a look. No, they were just, yep, exactly. They weren't there because they were in stock here. Yeah, so they ran out of stock. So like I said, you can tell who's dominant on the listings, and literally 9 times out of 10, you can look at why price behaves the way it was. Why price behaves the way it does, and how different lines on this graph behave the way they do, and figure out an answer for it and dig a bit deeper, and then use that information which you gather to make better purchasing decisions. Because you might have some sellers who think, oh my God, it dropped to £9. Let me send in a couple units. And you might have a couple sellers. You might have people who think, oh my God, it dropped to it increased to £9, sorry. Let me jump in and try and get some sales at £9. No, High House might have like 6 months worth of stock, and okay, they've never increased their price to £9. So it's literally digging deeper, using this information to make better purchasing decisions. At the same time, you might see, okay, High House has, let's say 5 units left, that's a day's worth of stock. Okay, if we have, let's say, access to X amount of units, we might be able to send in stock, get some sales, make some profit before High House is able to replenish. But then again, that's a decision for you to make if you want to run your business in that way. So how long have we gone through there? 3. We'll go through one more, because I'm not actually sure how long this video's gone on for. But if you do want to see more videos like this, of me literally just going through listings and showing what I'm seeing, feel free to let me know in the comments, because I'm more than happy to do it. Again, you can literally see who distributes that Quaker Oats company. That's interesting. Now what are we seeing with this? Let's look down at the data. So £7.95, and it's had some sort of a price spike, I would say. However, it's dropping back down, okay, to below £7.95. It's gone down to £7.80. Now let's look at, okay, who's actually caused this price drop? So we have, well, we can literally go in and analyze it to a T by utilizing the price history and seeing how competitors reprice and who's causing the drops in pricing. Or we can literally, so that's gone from £9 to £7.80. That's gone from, so when did that change? So these lot aren't tanking, because you can see here it's These guys dropped August 8th. Yeah, August 8th, below 9 quid. These were already below 9 quid. So we have who's actually at £7.80 now. So by the looks of things, we have this company here who's been gradually tanking. July 30th, August 1st, they dropped to £8.30, whatever. Yeah, so these guys have been pretty much below everyone. So who's this? Joel's Health Supply. And oftentimes as well, we can have a look at the buy box percentage, which there you go, it shows us who's dominating the buy box. Joel's Health Supply. So now let's have a look at how much stock Joel's Health Supply has, and then that will give us an inkling. Okay, they've got a limiter on. So what we can do is literally look at the historical data for Joel's Health Supply and see what's the lowest price they've ever dropped to. Okay, so again, this again looks like they've jumped on listing at 13 quid, expecting it to sell at 30 quid or close to 30 quid, but then again, they're probably overstocked and they've now gone into tank, or they're probably liquidating some stock because they need better cash flow in their business. And you have this company here, HGT, who seems to be following a similar trend. So this listing, even though you might look at this and think, okay, that don't look too bad, in the last month it's been somewhat, it hasn't even been stable, but you can very clearly see there's a downward trend there. Now usually when you see a downward trend in price point, it's going to sell more, and you start to see a downward trend in sales rank, and we can sort of see that here. It's gone from being priced at, like, let's say 9 quid, price points dropped to 7 quid, and now you can see the sales rank literally slowly dropping, and it's just going to keep dropping as that price point drops. Again, that touches on what I said earlier, which is every single line works together, they intertwine, and we can use that to help predict how the listings will perform in the future, as well as digging deeper into literally every single data point here you see on these Keepa graphs. We haven't gone into every single one obviously on this video, just because the listings haven't, well, I just haven't. Like I said, I can talk about this for hours and hours. I actually do that in the Wholesale Academy, my mentorship program. We dig into every single aspect of Keepa and product analysis in a lot of depth. If you want help with it, if you want to jump on the program, link in the description for a free call to see if you're a good fit. But I hope you found that useful and hopefully got sort of an idea of the things you want to be looking at. And like I said, we didn't go through everything. Like, you can use all this stuff here of averages and whatnot, but then again, it's important to understand, okay, this is an average, what's brought about this average, what data points have brought about this average, is this average representative of the sort of offers we're going to bring in? So much you can look at. But like I said, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. Subscribe as well if you want to see more videos like this, because there's a lot more coming and it will completely transform your Amazon wholesale business for sure. And I will catch you guys in the next one.